on. And in fact, you're just in right in time for press review, where we take a look at some of the biggest stories on the local dailies. And of course, as always, I will start with the Standard newspaper this morning. But before I do so, this is our panel. Sitting closer to me, Advocate Ambrose Weda. On my far left, Honorable Kembi Gitura, the former senator for Muranga County. And my far left, I have Honorable Kipruto Arab Kira. He is the deputy party leader to ANC. Gentlemen, as always, it's good to have you here on a Thursday morning on KTN News. Thank you for making time. The Standard this morning, the biggest headline, Uhuru rebuilds his State House team. And then yet there's also an interesting story there that might catch your eye. Shock as 72 border riders killed in Western Kenya over the past 1 year. We give you details on that story and why residents within the area are angry and with anxiety. But let me go to that top story for today, which can be found on page 4 of the Standard newspaper this morning. Gentlemen, Uhuru seems to have done a mini reshuffle, should I say, in order to secure his legacy, which has also caused a bit of debate across the political divide, should I add. Nevertheless, this picture that we're seeing of President Uhuru Kenyatta's new team, Weda, I'd love to begin with you. Is it a power picture? When you look at this front page, do you say yes, Mr. Kenyatta?
I thought if you look at this, allow me to look at it. I think these are various positions. Head of the public service, Uhuru rebuilds his State House team. Head of the public service is not the State House team. That's actually public. But I think people want to gear in and see the president's inner circle, the power barons, the power brokers, the mafia. They want to know whether it's Kiambu Mafia or Muranga Mafia. So they are trying to figure. But I think these are various people holding various offices. And then some people have served, like the former State House controllers, the one who has been proposed for ambassadorial position. Some people come and some people go out. But I think the yearning to see the mafia that is around the president brings in such kind of thinking that he's rebuilding. I think it's not we should not read too much into these names.
Honorable Kembi, do you agree? When you look at these names, you have Zioka Waita, who is the Chief of Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Timothy for Aide-de-Camp, and Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, James Turi. Does this paint a power picture to you?
First of all, I don't understand why Weda calls it, wants to use the word mafia so early in the morning. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't, it's not logical at this time, because I cannot understand where it's coming from. But yes, one thing that he says, which is correct in my view, is that I don't know why they say the word rebuild, because these are the same people that have been there, except, and I must say there's a very nice and fresh face there, Kanzedena, who is, I mean, she's made the whole thing look different, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And she's delivering what she has to very, very well indeed, very professionally. So for me, this, I don't know where the word rebuilds actually comes from, because they're the same people. The same head of public service. Waita has been there. Kinuthia Bogo has been there for some time. Matiang'i has been there for quite some time, actually. So, yeah.
All right.
It's Wanyama Musiabo and J. Muturi. We have a new ADC, or there's a new ADC. That's the only real new person that I can see there. I don't know what the word rebuilds is meant to depict in this headline by the Standard. I don't know. All
right. Honorable Kipruto, you look at the team that is there, and critics would say probably this is President Uhuru Kenyatta answering or responding to the change of political environment that we are seeing. Nevertheless, do you think he needs to do more in terms of cementing his legacy?
Well, one thing I can say about the team is national in terms of structure and outlook. And this is something that is very useful. At times you find some presidents literally put even their relatives, and they feel their relatives around themselves. Of course, I've told you the one of Equatorial Guinea, where the deputy president is the son of the president. And it doesn't paint a nice picture. But this one is okay, and I want to congratulate the two, Ganzedena and Lekolol. Lekolol happens to have been in the school I went to, and I'm happy he went to Mangu. And I was just telling where I went to Mangu High School. So
Kisumu boys.
Kisumu boys. Okay.
That's why
Well, they used to come to Mangu for A level. So
Right, gentlemen.
it's a good team, but I think the Standard has a bigger story in terms of telling us this is the face of the president's delivery team.
Right.
And this is a good team, in my opinion, given the experience of people like Kinyua, who was my PS, and I know he's a very focused person, and he has the necessary experience, and I think he's not as ambitious as many of us are. Yeah.
All right. There's also the aspect, gentlemen, and I'd love to start with Honorable Kembi. Makweni Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr. said that these whole changes that we're seeing means that probably President Uhuru Kenyatta is not satisfied with the work of some officers that are currently there. Do you agree?
Well, I'm sure the president cannot do a reshuffle and remove a cabinet secretary from the position he's holding, and if he's satisfied with him. Or he could do it also because he thinks that cabinet secretary could serve better in a different portfolio. So, you know, this is the mandate that the president has. And the people, of course, who say many things about CS Aden going to East Africa community,
right,
and CS Munya going to trade. Some people will try to find things to talk about in that thing. Some will say that East Africa community is not as important as trade, and they are wrong. You know, when you get these ministerial positions, whatever they are, it's a very big responsibility that the president is putting upon your shoulders to serve the people of Kenya. There are people who would think that, say, culture and social services is not an important ministry. I personally think it's one of the most important ministries in a nation, because that is where a nationhood begins, and that is where now we should be able to recreate what it is that we want to do as a nation. So people would look into a lot of things into reshuffles like this ones, but like I've said, yes, the president can remove you, absolutely, because you are not delivering at all, or he can put in a different portfolio because in his view, in his considered opinion, you'll be better placed there, because by having you for a year or two, he is able to see you in a cabinet and to determine your capabilities, your strengths and weaknesses, and to see how best you can fit into the system. But he hasn't dismissed any cabinet secretary, no, at least not as yet. So I again think we will be looking into too much if we try to understudy what the president has done in that mini reshuffle that he has done, which is only the East African community and trade swapping positions. Yeah.
But because we're already talking about the issue of cabinet secretaries, gentlemen, there's one question that I need to ask, because I know you will later go on into details on hot topics, on State of the Nation, and that's the issue of how cabinet secretaries, given the issue with Kenya Power that Charles Ketere is facing, the issue of Kenya Power, do you think, especially Kipruto, since that you are a former minister, that cabinet secretaries within their leadership need to do more in terms of responsibility within their department, and not the excuse of, I did not know that this is happening under my watch?
You know, it depends on the, you know, for every administration they have their own style. There are many things which may happen in a parastatal without even the minister knowing.
Right.
And there are many things that may also happen in the same ministry without the knowledge of the minister. But there are certain projects of certain magnitude, like the one of Kenya Power, that of necessity the minister should have been in the know. And therefore, anybody saying he was not aware is shirking his responsibility as a minister. But when you look at the totality of the Kenya Power saga, it means there is a bigger office somewhere, or a coordinating office, because it's not just the officers that have been named. And it's unfortunate, some of our colleagues from Rift Valley are saying all these are one side of the equation. I could see there were 4 people from Central Kenya, there were a number of them from Rift Valley, and there were also from other parts of Kenya. There is a Luhya, there is somebody from Somali community. So we cannot say this is one section of the country. So, but the question you've asked, ministers may be in the know or may not be in the know, depending on the magnitude. When you go for 400 million from one ministry, that the minister must have known what was going on. Yeah.
All right, Weda, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. On the issue of the Solai Dam, which we continue to keep our eyes on, Perry Mansuk, who is the general manager of Kensalt Limited, said that he's also a victim of the Solai Dam that saw 48 Kenyans lose their lives. More so, he goes on to say that the reason why the dam collapsed was because of natural phenomenon and attributed it to massive deforestation. Whether your thoughts on this as an advocate when Perry says, Mansuk says that he's also a victim of the Solai Dam tragedy.
Now, Solai Dam was not created by God. It was created by them. They created it. Mm-hmm. And as you create some of these things, there are known international standards set by professionals that you follow. Mm-hmm. This building where we are was not created by God here. So when you build it here, you must satisfy certain requirements so that it does not fall across the road and hit us. Right. So when you do not, when you just bring a chunk of soil and then you cover water, and then when more water comes, it bursts and goes. You cannot say that you are also a victim. I think we must learn at times when we lose lives to say, sorry, there was a mistake here, and I think we have rectified or is being rectified. Trying to cry for our land, to pay people peanuts, and then to go around jumping and yapping, and then parliamentarians clapping for you and taking selfies with you, I think it's an insult to those who have died, and insult to those who continue to live in danger, because the danger remains. As you can see the changes in weather, there will be more rain, the dam will still burst, and more people will die. It's obvious. So when somebody talks like that, I don't know the people he's talking to, what they're smoking as they cheer him. There are certain things our money should not be wasted listening to. The danger is still there. As long as those dams, if you look at the dams that are constructed, and you hear billions are going, if you see the excavation, the metal, or is it metal work, or the way it is reinforced, it's such a way that even if it was to burst, you'd look and say, we did all that was humanly possible, and we could not foresee this. But when you have done nothing, you have just brought soil and heaped it there, surely.
That's a different scenario.
Yeah, so what is it? Should stop joking around with us.
On page 10 of the Standard this morning, we're telling you a story of how 72 border riders have lost their lives in just this past 1 year, and 525 others have been injured. And it's the story of the issue of the safety of borders, where you have passengers who term to be not the safest, should I add on top of that. But I'll let you grab a copy of your Standard. Let us take a quick commercial break here on Morning Express. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Daily Nation. A lot more that we have for you. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.
Luxury, comfort, attention to detail, extra touch of class, royalty. This is Lessus Executive. We offer excellent selection of chauffeur-driven cars that cater for your business meetings, conferences, VVIP transport, airport transfers, special and red carpet events. Contact us for the executive feel. Lessus Executive, where class meets comfort.
Site in Kwasasi set aside for the coal power plant project.
Kama sahi uchumi uko chini sana. Hakuna kazi.
Kama kuna watu wasema sijui kuna sumu zitakuja, mimi I believe kama kijana hakuna sumu zaidi ya drugs.
Clean coal as opposed to just ordinary coal plant is an issue that need to be looked at more comprehensively.
The technology we'll employ there will also go very far into reducing up to 99% of those other pollutants.
The conversation about the composition and economics of power generation in the country has so far received the short end of the stick.
We are talking about the tariff of below 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's a matter of making a choice. Would you prefer to remain backward?
We are focused on coal We are very aggressive on geothermal, which is a renewable energy. We have a policy on solar, on wind.
High odds. Fast pay.
Bookmaker Company.
This is KTN News.
All right, welcome back. This is Morning Express. We're just rounding up press review, so if you just joined us, you're right in time. We want to now take a look at the Daily Nation. Of course, it's running with the power bill scam. Finally, the truth being we'll just touch on that a little bit. But there's also another interesting story of how 96 billion Kenyan shillings is being stashed away in Switzerland. We'll give you details in just a few minutes. But first of all, let me get the thoughts from my panel on this specific issue on page 6. Where is NASA, where NASA to stay, says Mudavadi. Honorable Kipruto, as a deputy leader to our party, ANC. This whole issue that is happening within ODM, we've seen Moses Wetangula saying that they want to back down and pull out of NASA coalition. Raila Odinga saying, I dare you, and make it legal. However, if you were to leave, and the parties that you are able to attain, the political parties that you're able to attain seats rather in parliament, leave them as well with us. But now the biggest question here is that if NASA, an entire coalition of political parties, was to be dispatched, will this not shake the Kenya's faith rather on democracy?
Well, you know, democracy is always an evolving organ, and therefore you cannot run away from some of the realities. The truth of the matter is that we came together because of certain political conveniences, which have not run away from us. And we in ANC, we strongly believe that we are still in NASA, and the instruments of formation of NASA are very clear. Until 3 members put it in writing that they are moved out, that's when NASA will collapse and will revert back to our individual parties, and the coalition will be a thing of the past. But you see, the challenge is that many Kenyans, they just want to see blood every day, and they want to see NASA dead, and they move on to something new. Otherwise, we are still in NASA, and personally, and the party position is that we are in NASA.
Yes, so your ANC chief says that he will continue to fight for the coalition.
Yeah, we still believe that whatever the need for that coalition is still relevant now as it was at the time.
Right.
Because we should be moving. You know, the continent of Africa has had challenges about political parties. We formed the parties on the eve of independence. Then there was a lull period. Then the other day, for clamor for multipartyism, assisted us to move to the new phase of multipartyism, which is this particular phase. We can ill afford a situation where parties degenerate and we allow one dominant force to pervade the landscape of Kenya.
And on that same note, Mheshimiwa Kipruto, without NASA, is ANC still relevant? Can it stand alone on its own 2 feet independently, unshaken?
Well, we can still stand and capture the constituencies that we captured. What we realize is that our fielding against each other, especially in Western Kenya, we lost more than 10 seats that would have won either from Jubilee or from any other coalition. Of course, our support will go down in some areas, but still, at times when you come into a coalition, you expect certain opportunities and also certain challenges.
All right, Honorable Kembi Gitura, this aspect, if NASA coalition was to disperse, the whole opposition party, will it not be undermined by Kenyans?
The whole?
The opposition party in itself, will it be undermined?
Well, you see, the death of NASA, and I don't wish it dead, but the death of NASA is coming from NASA itself. I think it is Senator Moses Wetangula who said that NASA is dead and that he has moved out of NASA. And and I think we canvassed this issue some times back. See, every party has its own rules, and the party expects that they'll be followed. In this case, NASA coalition has its own rules. I'm sure they have a rule book. And if you decide to quit NASA, then there are consequences for a party. Because parliamentary committees, for instance, and positions are given by dint of what the party wants. So the party says you'll be the leader of minority, the party says you'll be the chairman of a public accounts committee, as the case may be. If you cease to follow that party, then you must also cease to hold those positions because you hold them by virtue of being a member of the party. Right. So I'm not surprised when NASA says to Senator Moses Wetangula, as the leader of Ford Kenya, I think, that in that case, then you must relinquish all the positions that you have by virtue of being members of NASA. That's logical. That's common sense because that's what every party would expect, and every member knows. Every member knows very well what being in a coalition means.
All right, Weda, do you think that these are the last kicks of a dying horse?
I think it's good to say NASA, but the chief shareholder of NASA announced officially at Uhuru Park that NASA was no more and was moving into something else. Before the swearing, I remember there was a big rally at Uhuru Park that Honorable Raila attended, and he announced something else. There was a movement he announced after NASA. Now, being the chief shareholder, so 60%, when a 60% shareholder moves out of a company, the company is dissolved. Thereafter, now the chief shareholder held his own. He assumed the office of people's president or shadow president. He even kept these others out. He told them, sit in that room, sit in that, I'll call you. He didn't call them. I think if you look at the history, if you look at the movement, NASA is closing down because ordinarily these people move to the next. Remember, Honorable Raila contested elections on CORD, then NASA, Uhuru contested on TNA, then Jubilee. The trend is to move to new things.
Whether I'll let you hold your